This is like a sign I finally made it. I feel like there's a lot of energy in this room, but I do want to ask you all, has anybody had a good time on the first day of Liberty Forum? All right, I'm very, very glad about that. I know I speak for our whole Atlas Network team when I say that we feel really privileged to bring together so many friends of freedom, so many who have traveled big distances to be here, and we really do try to make it worth your while to spend this time together. And tonight we are putting together two of my favorite Atlas Network traditions into one spectacular dinner program that we're calling our Eyes on the Prize dinner and program. I'm going to encourage you to start your salad as I tell you a little bit about what we have planned. After dinner, we're going to hold our John Blundell elevator pitch competition, and in just a moment, we will begin our Think Tank Shark Tank competition. And I really like the way that Liberty Forum is lined up this year. If you have done your homework on Atlas and looked at our promo materials, you might know that we try to boil down our business strategy into 3 words. We call it coach, compete, celebrate. And the whole idea is that all of us in the freedom movement can accomplish more faster if we get better together rather than in isolation. So we come together in training programs to learn the secrets of success for policy think tanks. That's the coach part. We work with our generous donors, some of whom are in the room, so that we can give away money to our network partners. The last several years, we've been able to fund more than 100 pro-liberty grants to our partners each year through our grant competitions. So that's the compete part. And then our amazing communications team, our amazing events team are all about helping us celebrate the biggest accomplishments in our movement. And our big hope is that when we celebrate together, it makes all of you even more ambitious when you go back home, thinking about what you're going to accomplish in the months ahead until the next Liberty Forum. So you'll want to take part in the training. You'll want to be submitting even better applications to the grant competitions, and so on. So when I look at the layout of this time that we're spending together these days, we've had a number in this room who have gone through training programs we were holding in Philadelphia in anticipation of this. So that was a lot of coach activities. Tomorrow, if you know anything about our Freedom Dinner, there is going to be a lot to celebrate tomorrow night. And tonight, we compete. Over the course of this year, thanks to generous funding from our friends at the Smith Family Foundation, we have run Think Tank Shark Tank competitions at each of our regional Liberty Forums in Colombo, Sri Lanka, in Athens, Greece, in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, and in Nairobi, Kenya. And it's all been building up to this Think Tank Shark Tank on our biggest stage right here at Liberty Forum in New York City. I'm going to explain how this works. We have been inspired by the popular TV show Shark Tank. Many of you are familiar with it. It is where you have real-life entrepreneurs pitching their businesses to venture capitalists, asking them to make equity investments to grow their company. And Think Tank Shark Tank operates in the same way, except that it's think tank leaders pitching projects that require funding to achieve outcomes for liberty. It's kind of fun to watch because it makes you realize that while sound economics and outstanding scholarship is sort of the fundamentals of think tank work, that doesn't get anything done on its own. You also need a strategic plan. You need budget forecasts. You need the ability to execute to achieve outcomes. You need the powers of persuasion to attract resources to your important work. So we're going to be bringing to the stage 3 think tank leaders who have gone through training in the Atlas Leadership Academy. They will each have 5 minutes to pitch their project before our distinguished panel of judges, and then there'll be 5 minutes to answer questions posed by those same judges. The judges then will huddle during dinner to select a winner of $25,000 in seed funding for one of the 3 projects, and the winner will be announced later in this evening's program. Last year's winning pitch was given by Petar I always botch this. Chekarovich. Petar, are you here? Close enough, right? Petar represents Libek, one of our partners in Serbia. His pitch was about scaling up its online media outlet, Talas, and it's been very exciting for us to see that project have breakout success this past year. Monthly traffic of 140,000 visits per month. A top Serbia's journalist called it the fastest growing new media outlet in Serbia. Its content is now followed by the Prime Minister, and it's been quoted 35 times in top mainstream media. So how fantastic is it that a classical liberal news outlet is on its way to becoming the most popular independent outlet for politics and policy discussion in the Serbian language. So congratulations, Petar. And it will be exciting to see if any of tonight's think tank, Shark Tank candidates can top the impact of Libek in Serbia. But first, let me ask our esteemed judges to come to the stage. I'll announce them one by one, beginning with a very seasoned judge hailing from Racine, Wisconsin, a member of the board of directors of Cato Institute and Reason Foundation. Let's welcome Fred Young. And we have a first-timer to the Think Tank Shark Tank competition. Based in the outskirts of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the president of the John Templeton Foundation. Let's welcome Heather Templeton-Dill. And finally, I dare say this is the individual who has seen more Think Tank Shark Tank competitions this year than anyone that's not employed by Atlas Network, because Roy went to the regional Liberty Forums we held in Asia, in Europe, and in Africa. Next year we'll get him to Latin America too. He's the founding president of Permaseal, hailing from Chicago, Illinois, and the chapter leader of the Conscious Capitalism chapter there, Roy Spencer. Let's get right into the competition and bring to the stage Connor Boyack, the founder of Libertas Institute in Utah, presenting a project called Free Market Curriculum for Families in the Home. Please welcome Connor Boyack.
Hello, judges. Hello, Atlas Network. I'd like to begin my presentation with a few questions. First question is, can I make a nice rhythm, and can we start the clock over again? I have another question. Let's try this. There we go. All right. Woo! Technical difficulties. I'm a tech nerd, so I can sympathize. My first actual question is, should a 6-year-old learn about spontaneous order? Can a 10-year-old learn things like scarcity and value? Good answers. And why would a teenager who often doesn't care about anything learn to care about free market economics? These are the types of questions that I think too few among us even ask, let alone attempt to answer. Across the freedom movement of think tanks across the world, nearly $1 billion is being spent every single year educating adults. But I believe that the future of our movement relies upon us reaching the rising generation. So today I'm excited to present Free Market Rules, a new curriculum for families to teach free markets and learn together in the home. Those of us fighting for free markets, we're like gardeners in this big orchard, tending to these trees that are old and diseased, and we're heaping bucket loads of fertilizer on these diseased trees, if only they would regain their health. Now that's important. There's a lot that we've invested in these older trees. We need to restore their health. But any good gardener is also focused on the rising generation, the seeds and the saplings, trying to identify ways that the future of the orchard can be a healthier one, avoiding the disease that has befallen the older trees. This is where I believe our movement has had a critical failure. We're the team to begin to address this because for the past 5 years, we've been publishing the Tuttle Twins children's books. Any readers in the room? We got a good handful. 10 books now in the series, over 500,000 copies being read worldwide. We're teaching kids things like private property rights, justice, free markets, sound money, and so much more. In fact, we also translate these books into nearly a dozen languages because the principles that they teach matter whether you grew up here in New York or in New Delhi. As you might imagine, books like these are a big hit in the homeschooling community. Over 2 million families in the United States homeschool. But these books are also a critical supplement to public schooling families. because those children are not learning these ideas in their textbooks or from their teachers. But publishing infrequent books pales in comparison to the opportunity to provide consistent curriculum, not just to expose children to these ideas, but to deepen their understanding of them. Which is why today I'm excited to present Free Market Rules, a new digital weekly curriculum for families with children of all ages who speak English to learn free markets together in the home. My son Keaton, who I paid $20 to do this video, we're free marketeers, and I like child labor. He's going to explain from a brief portion of our marketing video how this program works.
Each week, you'll get 5 things in your email inbox. Some material for you to learn about that week's concept, an activity or lesson for younger children, one for older children, dinner conversation starters for the whole family, and because we know you're going to love it just as much as your kids, even more material for you to get even deeper into that week's concept.
Maybe I should have paid him $30 instead of $20, we'll see. But by doing this digitally, we can lower our costs and enable families to reuse this material over time. We're basically simplifying complex economic topics and making them relevant for children of all ages. For example, a young child might learn about incentives through a coloring page or a crossword puzzle that introduces the idea, whereas a teenager can learn about opportunity costs by doing an exercise where they explore trade-offs that may become of not brushing your teeth in the morning and what happens with that. Existing donors have enabled us to build out the first 7 months of this curriculum. We're here at Think Tank Shark Tank seeking additional funding to continue that momentum to be applied towards content development, consultation with economists, entrepreneurs, and teachers, editing, illustrations, marketing, and more. But at a future point, this program will be self-sustainable because participating families pay $7.99 or less to access this curriculum, which means in the future, we'll continue to be able to do more outreach to new communities, homeschool co-ops, charter schools, church groups, and many more through the subscription base that we've been able to build out. So let's continue to fertilize the mature trees in our global orchard, absolutely. But it's critical that we pay attention to the seeds and saplings. We have to invest in the rising generation. With the Tuttle Twins books, we've proven the model. We've shown that there's demand for this type of content. The next step is for more consistent content, to be able to nurture the seeds and saplings among us and invest in the rising generation. There is no better ROI than investing in our future. So to that end, I ask for your support for Free Market Rules, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we're restarting the clock. We've got 5 minutes for questions. Anybody want to start?
I'm going to jump right in. So Connor, thanks for your presentation. You mentioned that you've proven there's demand for this material. Can you say a little bit more about that? Who's demanding it? How much and what quantities? What does that look like?
So we have about 90,000 plus families reading the Tuttle Twins books. 60% of them are homeschoolers, about 35% do public school, and the remainder is a mix of private school and other forms as well. We spend about $500,000 on ads every single year online just to get people to buy the books. So we're effectively creating a big marketing funnel where once they've acquired the books, we can market the curriculum. We're developing a game. We're going to do a cartoon in the future. We're trying to build a funnel so that we get a lot of new people into the movement.
Great. And who is your primary audience? Are you focused primarily on those who already understand free market principles and want to educate the next generation, or do you have an appetite to reach skeptics as well?
When we first started publishing the Tuttle Twins books, the idea was, hey, libertarians, get books for your kids and pass on what you know. The greatest opportunity and our biggest demographic now are people who've never heard of Hayek, they've never heard of Mises, they've never read any of these types of books. Our avatar, our biggest customer right now are people who just heard from the mom in their church group or in their community that these are books that teach your children critical thinking skills. They don't know a lot about it. And so the devious thing with this program, this curriculum, and the books, we're educating a lot of adults along with their children. Because the adults, we get feedback all the time of like, oh my gosh, I never learned that in school. So we've heard a lot of panels about how do we reach new people. We're reaching a ton of new adults, especially the moms, along with their children as well.
Connor, your format is to invoke the family working as a unit. One of the pathologies of our time is broken families in the United States in particular. Do you have some thoughts about how you might penetrate that demographic in addition to the homeschoolers and people who are going to be easy to treat as a family unit?
That's a great question, especially with a lot of the single moms. We've been talking with this. We have a kind of an advisory curriculum committee of educators, entrepreneurs, and parents. And so we've been tackling that question, trying to figure out how we can do this in bite size, especially if you're a single parent managing your kids. Your time is very limited. And so we're also going to be producing a podcast, and we're doing other forms of material where maybe mom in the car taking the kids to soccer can have a meaningful conversation, or when they're in the grocery store, they can have a 5-minute conversation. We're, in the end, trying to diversify all the offerings so that families of different makeups and ages of kids all have something that they can use to pass on this type of information.
If you could elaborate, Connor, a little bit, first of all, thank you so much. I love the early education. We can't get them early enough, so that's a tremendous idea. Can you elaborate a little bit? I was going to ask you about, I thought your budget was ambitious until you mentioned you already spent $500,000 on advertising. So can you tell us a little bit about that $250,000?
I don't know if we can put the slides back up, but if they can, I have an additional slide at the end that I'll show if they get that set up that shows the budget. This is a 2-year campaign until we get to the point of self-sustainability. The total budget is $253,000, and here we go. As I said, we've already had a number of donors who've been able to sustain us to get to this point. We've been developing this for a year, all the e-commerce, all the technology, all the content, the illustrations, and more. And so we've been able to get this down the road. We launched it publicly in August. But the $253,000 is what it takes to get us to the point of self-sustainability. This is an opportunity to invest in something that's going to have longevity in the future without us having to go back and ask donors over and over and over again. We built into it a revenue model so that the families participating over time will be the ones to sustain not only the ongoing curriculum development for them, but then the budget for us to go out into other communities and try and draw in other people.
Could you tell me briefly about the marketing campaign? How do you and who do you market it to?
So those 2 kids are my own. I'll tell them that you all love the video. If you go to our Facebook page, you'll see we got a couple of videos. They are our stars. We get millions of views on their videos, and so that's how we draw people in to cute kids learning about it. They end up buying the books. And then for this particular curriculum, as I said, we're marketing primarily to the people who already bought the books because they're the low-hanging fruit. They're familiar with our brand. They wanted content, they bought the books, maybe now they'll do a subscription model for the books. And so we've done postcards, more online ads, and we're doing kind of our own marketing funnel just for the curriculum to build that out and try and sustainably get people to sign up.
Brief question, could be argued that the average school board is left-leaning in the United States. Do you have some thoughts about how to penetrate into the schools?
Great final question. A recent poll came out, 1 in 3 millennials, actually 16 and above, have a favorable view of communism. I mean, this isn't even the road to serfdom, this is the road to communism now. We need to penetrate the schools. For now, we're going directly into the families, but the idea is once we have that revenue, we'll have a sustainable funding opportunity to go into the schools and start developing curriculum for teachers.
Okay, we're gonna have to stop it there. Thanks so much, Connor.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next up to our stage, the COO of Advocata in Sri Lanka with a project called Freedom Manifesto. Please welcome Dhananath Fernando.
The word promise is a powerful word. It was said there are 3 things that you should never break: hearts, trust, and promises. In Sri Lanka, where I live, our people's hearts and trust have been repeatedly broken by false promises by politicians since the day our democracy took flight. Is there anyone in the audience whose trust has been broken repeatedly by false promises touted by politicians? Raise your hands. I knew I wasn't alone. What I'm pitching today is a way to counter that. I'm asking for $25,000 to create Advocata Freedom Manifesto, which is a web platform which will not only identify what reforms people want, but also hold politicians accountable for implementing those reforms and make them accountable for the promises they have made. You may be asking yourself, don't Sri Lankan political parties have party manifestos? They do. Just like the political parties in America have platforms, Sri Lankan political parties do produce manifestos laying out their promises. But there is a problem. Typical party manifestos are full of free giveaways. Once a party leader said there are about 4 million school-going children, so let's give them a free glass of milk. It's not free milk anymore. One political party's current manifesto promises free fertilizer, free sanitary napkins, and many more. Advocata Freedom Manifesto will eliminate all that. Instead, we ask people, what reforms do you want? Advocata Freedom Manifesto has two main components, the survey platform and the monitoring platform. We'll be conducting a survey with 10,000 individuals across the country, focusing on diverse voter profiles, asking them, what reforms do you want? We'll be focusing on voter concerns like cost of living, taxation, healthcare, education. Advocata Freedom Manifesto will outline the solutions after data analysis and present the free market solutions to the political parties to incorporate in their party manifesto. No more free giveaways, real problems identified, real solutions proposed. Now, the advantage for the political party is from the Advocata Freedom Manifesto, they will be able to identify what reforms are more appealing for the voters and the number of votes that they can garner by adhering those reforms. Now, the next question is, what if the political party decides not to adopt Advocata Freedom Manifesto in their party manifestos? The monitoring platform is the solution. The monitoring platform will monitor the delivery of the promises and hold them accountable. And it will monitor the adherence of the Advocata Freedom Manifesto policies in the party manifestos. My favorite part of the platform is where people can send their emotional responses through digital faces, through audio, through video on this platform. And the responses will be directly tagged and hashtagged to the political party and the party leaders' all social media platforms to build pressure upwards. We expect 12 free market solutions to be incorporated in the party manifestos from the Free Market Freedom Manifesto, and 400,000 unique visitors to use our platform and to host 2 TV discussions on the national television. Our budget is about $38,000, and we expect to utilize $25,000 from think tank Shark Tank to build the platform and for the research and the survey. And the balance money will be raised from individual subscribers. We expect 15 million people to be benefit from implementing our reforms, and that's 70% of my country's population. We expect the saving of $100 million of taxpayer money by implementing our reforms. The next question is, can we do this? Advocata followed the same approach on bringing down taxation on food, which relieved entire population of Sri Lanka, and we brought down the taxation from 40% of the sanitary napkins, which was a relief for 4.2 million menstruating women. Ladies and gentlemen, Advocata Freedom Manifesto gives a voice to the voiceless and a full stop on free giveaways. My dear panelists, my dear panel of judges, I have a promise for you. With Advocata Freedom Manifesto, there will be no more free giveaways, and there will be no more hearts broken.
Very well done. Okay, I think Fred Young wants to start us off here. Take it away,
Well,
Fred.
you started talking about broken hearts. You have a special situation to deal with, and I want to know how you will handle the demographics associated with the sensitive Muslim minority issues. You can't please everyone. How are you going to deal with that in your surveys?
In our survey, 10,000 is more than an adequate sample, so the sample will be spread across all the regions, and we'll be having a 2,000 additional sample of having one-to-one discussions to cover the people, those who do not have the internet access. And regionally, the sample will be spreaded, and it will be monitoring online, and it will be promoted widely on all the social media platforms to get the answers and get the responses.
Do you plan to deal with the issue of the Muslim minority sensitivities?
Of course, yes. And we are planning to take all the issues which people has, so that will be all incorporated in the party manifestos, and we will not run away from any issue where the people have the main concerns, and we'll be tackling it up front.
Dana, you said that there will be no more free programs, but how are you going to solicit people? You said you want to know what they want. What if they come back and say, we want free milk, we want free health care, we want free education? What if that's what they say they want?
That's a great question. Generally, when you ask people, generally they provide the problem that they have. For an instance, they will tell, I have an issue with farming. Actually, the politicians are the one who went and said, we'll give you free fertilizer. And the reason is the Advocata Freedom Manifesto data will be analyzed by the Advocata Institute because we want to push the free market policies. So the policies would be not any more free giveaways. It will be releasing lands for the people, because if you look at agriculture, if they want more fertilizer, it's not the fertilizer issue. That's how we push the reform into the system, because the issue is people don't have the land right or the property right. Because of that, they don't have the capital requirement because they can't take a bank loan because their property is under the government. So actually, it's the issue is the financial issue, so which will be pushed through the Advocata Freedom Manifesto. And that's how we are planning to bring the Freedom Manifesto and the free market suggestions into the political party manifestos.
But you feel, are you going to offer people choices like an agricultural thing, or you're just going to leave it wide open? What do you want?
No, it will be, on the online platform, it will be not the open-ended questions. It will be more or less the closed-ended questions, and there will be a section for people to comment also the open-ended recommendations. But the responses will be directed in a way how people should respond with an answer for their already existing issues.
How long is it going to take to complete the survey? And also, why did you focus on the 4 topical areas that you mentioned?
Basically, it's, well, if you can get to the slide, it's the main 4 areas, because those are the main concerning areas in Sri Lanka: healthcare, education, transportation, cost of living. But if there are any other areas based on the dipstick study that we are doing, it is always accommodative. And our timeline is 4 months. Because for a 10,000 survey, we can do it within 4 months, and we are targeting the 2020 August election. So our timeline starts from, if I can get that slide, I had a couple of additional slides. So start from 1st of December, and it will go till about March 28th on analyzing the data and doing the survey. Yes, here's a timeline starting from 1st of December, and it will go till 28th of March 2020.
And are there politicians who are willing to listen to some of the arguments?
So far, even the bringing down taxation on food and sanitary napkins, we have successful stories, and we have been gaining the mileage. So there are a lot of free market issues which has been brought down to the political party manifestos, even in the upcoming presidential election, which is happening on 16th of November. So there's a lot of hope. That's why we promise only 12 free market solutions to be mainly incorporated on the party manifestos.
Following up with the accountability issue, it looked like you were going to do a survey post-election to see how people, have you budgeted that in as well? So you're going to survey the same people, how the politicians responded to their promises, is that correct?
Exactly. So the same people can come and respond, and they'll be joining with a user ID, so it can be tracked down how satisfied the people who have submitted the submissions on the same platform.
How long a time period after the election is that survey scheduled?
The monitoring will be happening continuously for about 5 years, but it will be based on a timeline. So in the Advocata Freedom Manifesto, there will be a timeline given for each of the promises based on the political party manifestos, and there will be 4 dashboards. What is the Freedom Manifesto, what are the party manifestos, and what are the contradicting policies, and what are the overlapping promises. So that's how we monitor on all 4 specs.
Okay, we're going to have to stop it there. Thank you so much, Dhananath. And last but not least, we have Adriana del Milagro Pineda Rios from CEDICE Libertad in Venezuela with an e-learning platform called Project Hazlitt.
Populism isn't just an issue in Venezuela. Think about what happened last month in Argentina, in Chile, in Ecuador. That's a proof that populism is in the rise in Latin America. Our leaders, they say that the rich don't put their fair share. They say that inequality is the enemy. And these are the ideas we hear again and again in the media. What I'm pitching to you today, it's a way to fight fire with fire. It's called the Hazlitt Project, a 6-week online training program for journalists on free market principles, a program that will change the way Latin American journalists report on economics. And you may be wondering, why focus on journalists? Because journalists shape how society understands reality. And many journalists unknowingly support populism because they lack the understanding of economics. But Hazlitt Project will change that. In 6 weeks, we're going to teach them free market principles and how to explain them in layman terms. We're going to show them, just as Hazlitt himself said. Hazlitt, an American journalist who tried to explain free market in layman terms. He said that the solution to our problems is not more paternalism, laws, decrees, or controls, but the restoration of liberty and free enterprise. So, in these first 5 weeks, journalists are going to have access to around 2 and 3 hours of video lessons covering topics such as political economy, social and economic problem and policies, free market principles, and ethics. Then, in the final week, they will have to write an op-ed on the contents of the program to publish in their outlets. And they will have the chance to network with classical liberal scholars in 2 Q&A sessions. Our premise is that when journalists understand economics, they make it part of their vocabulary. And that is what our experience has shown us. We have 35 years. Oh, sorry. Here's a sneak peek Teachler has made for us. And Teachler is the company we are partnering to make this come true. This is how the profile would look like. When the journal is signing, this is what they are going to see. And when they click in the contents, this is what they are how the videos are going to look like. So our premise is that once journalists understand economics, they make it part of their discourse. And we know it because we have 35 years teaching journalists free market principles. And by making it digital, we're going to increase our impact by 5 times. So in a 2-year period, we will be able to hold 20 groups of 40 journalists each, for a grand total of 800 journalists, and to have at least 800 articles published with a free market perspective. Just imagine how many minds we can change when journalists are sounding boards for these ideas. So to make all this come true, we will need $50,000. And here's how that budget would look like. In the first 4 months, we're going to expend $16,000 in the filming of the content. And for the next 2 years, we're going to spend $4,000 in the platform and $30,000 for the staffing. Half of the financing, it's coming from a small tuition we're asking journalists to pay, and from a private donor who has agreed to make the meets end. What I'm asking to you today are $25,000 to kickstart the filming and to kickstart the platform. Let me finish by introducing you to Jeanette. Jeanette is a journalist and a correspondent for the Wall Street Journal in Caracas. Before taking our training, here's a headline she wrote. Government imported beans to be sold below regulated price. But after taking our training, she changed her perspective on market economies. Now she writes, lack of confidence dilutes minimum wage. With your help, we can fight fire with fire. Speech has always been a path to freedom, and together we can work to free Latin America of its populist hold.
Okay, there's 5 minutes on the clock. Time for the judges to ask some questions.
Thank you, Adriana. I don't know, when I read in the papers and the media and things, I don't get the impression that the Venezuelan government is particularly, open to criticism from journalists. So, is there something that I don't know, or that do you feel like these journalists, you can train them and they're going to be open? Is it safe for them to write what they feel?
Censorship, it's a reality in Venezuela. That's true. And that's why in the later years, we're focusing on forming social communicators. I don't know if that term exists in English, but in Spanish, a social communicator is not only the one who goes to a TV program and who goes to a radio, but are the ones who go to digital media. And digital media and Twitter and social media have become a big part of how Venezuelans get their information. So that's where our focus has been on those independent digital media where we can leverage these ideas. Because yes, we have censorship, but we have been able to overcome that in this targeting social communicators.
Beyond that censorship, the issue would be if an individual journalist signed on to your online page, their picture was there, so on and so forth, does this not expose them to adverse circumstances from the government?
Actually, the picture, as I said, this was a sneak peek, and we can modify this kind of things. So no, that wouldn't be an issue, actually.
Tell me a little bit about the content. So it's 5 weeks of content. What are the topics? What are journalists going to be exposed to? I think that's going to matter a great deal.
Okay, we have 5 weeks of content, and that content is going to be, the first week we have economic principles and concepts. Then we have a module on social and economic policies and problems. And we have then the module of political economy and the module on ethics. So that's, those other contents we have been developing throughout the years, and we have made alliances with scholars in Venezuela, and we can also leverage our network to, the networks we're part of in Latin America to rely on other scholars to make the content reach and to make it not only from a Venezuelan perspective, but from a Latin American perspective, and these scholars would be lending their voice and their knowledge to what we're doing.
How are journalists going to find out about this, and what is going to inspire them to give hours of their time in one sitting to
actually something good about this program is that we have a successful word of mouth. We make it 4 times a year, and every time we have a full house. When I talk about a full house, we have only, because of limitation of the space, we can only host 20 journalists, but we have 80 journalists who they ask to be part of the program, and we have they always reference the program to their fellow journalists. So we never lack attendance, to say it.
Will you be asking for international support either from private organizations or from governments who are friendly to your cause?
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
Do you expect that you might receive some financial support or tangible support in other forms from governments such as the United States or Colombia who are sympathetic to your cause?
We haven't contemplated that. What we saw was the Shark Tank for kickstarting the filming and the content, and the other half coming from tuition, because we think that it's important not to give free stuff away, but to people to invest, even if it's a little quota, just $60, to invest in a bootcamp they are going to use to expand their knowledge on economics.
Are the journalists from top-notch newspapers or periodicals that people read frequently?
Sorry?
Are the journalists who would come to this or take part, are they from, what kind of newspapers are they from, or what kind of?
We have received journalists from every path. We have journalists from small medias and digital medias, and we have journalists in recognized positions. I'm deeply sorry to them that I can't remember their names. But for example, we have Jeanette, who is from the Wall Street Journal. We have one journalist who right now it's at an American, who's in an American channel, but I can't remember her name. So they come here and then they grow. Actually, many journalists that we have hosted in our program had seen grow their careers to other outlets.
So you're reaching a variety of different
yes.
kinds of journalists.
Okay, thanks so much. Thanks, Adriana. Congratulations. Well done. Let's have one more round of applause for all 3 of our contestants and also our judges.